The sun dipped low behind the skeletal skyline of what was once a bustling city, casting long shadows over cracked streets and abandoned cars. The world had changed, but life, in some stubborn corners, still clung on. Dead America wasn't just a place, it was a nightmare writ large, a silent war waged every day by those who refused to surrender. Marcus adjusted the strap of his worn backpack and scanned the horizon. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke and something else, something metallic and unsettling. His heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from the constant adrenaline of survival. For months, Marcus had roamed these ruined streets, a soldier in this invisible conflict against the undead, the quiet dead as some called them, because they moved with eerie silence, their presence felt more than heard. His group had been whittled down from a hopeful dozen to just 4, each member carrying scars, both seen and unseen. This wasn't the war they had imagined when the outbreak began. No flashy heroics, no grand battlegrounds. Just endless vigilance, quick decisions, and the grim reality that the enemy could be anywhere. Ahead, a toppled street lamp flickered faintly. Marcus signaled with his hand, and his closest companion, Elena, slowed to a cautious stop beside him. Her sharp eyes scanned every shadow, every broken window. "We're close," Marcus whispered, voice low but steady. "Supply cache should be in that building." He nodded toward a crumbling brick structure partially hidden behind an overturned bus. It had once been a community center, a place of gathering, laughter, memories now as fragile as the shattered glass littering the ground. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "Let's hope it's not just another trap." Her rifle was slung loosely over her shoulder, but her fingers twitched near the grip, ready. The rest of the group, Jared and Mia, fell in behind them, silent and alert. Jared, the youngest, kept his gaze down the alleys, always watching for the slightest movement. Mia, quiet but deadly, carried the group's makeshift first aid kit and maintained an air of calm that balanced Marcus's restless energy. As they approached the entrance, the sound of a distant thud echoed faintly, a reminder that the quiet dead could be near at any moment. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Stay sharp. No sudden moves." The front doors of the center hung askew, creaking softly in the breeze. Marcus pushed them open just enough to peek inside. The dim interior was thick with dust and shadows, but his flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing overturned chairs and a toppled podium. "Empty," Mia said, but then froze, her eyes catching something deeper in the room. Marcus followed her gaze and saw it, fresh footprints in the dust leading toward the back exit. "They were here," Elena said. "And they didn't come alone." A sudden rustle from the adjacent hallway set their nerves on edge. Marcus raised his rifle, signaling the others to spread out. Slowly, they moved deeper inside, every step measured, every breath held tight. Then, from the darkness, a soft groan. A figure lurched forward, pale and stiff. Marcus's heart clenched, it was one of the quiet dead. But something was different about this one. It hesitated, as if struggling with the remnants of awareness. "Elena, cover me," Marcus commanded. He stepped forward, aiming carefully to avoid unnecessary harm. His finger tightened on the trigger. But before he could fire, the creature suddenly bolted, not toward them, but out a side door. The moment passed, and the group exchanged wary looks. "What was that?" Jared whispered, voice trembling slightly. Marcus lowered his weapon but didn't relax. "I don't know. But it means things are changing." They followed the creature's trail outside, where the city's eerie silence wrapped around them like a shroud. The streets were littered with signs of hurried abandonment, discarded backpacks, overturned bicycles, a shattered smartphone still buzzing faintly on the sidewalk. As they moved cautiously, Marcus thought back to the early days of the outbreak. The world had shattered overnight, leaving everyone scrambling. Governments collapsed, communities fell, and the quiet dead multiplied, relentless and remorseless. But the survivors, those like Marcus and his group, had found ways to fight back. They learned to move quietly, to use the shadows, to anticipate the undead's strange patterns. It wasn't just brute force anymore. It was a game of patience and cunning. Suddenly, a faint cry broke the silence, sharp and desperate. Marcus froze, every muscle taut. Did you hear that? Mia nodded, already moving toward the sound. Someone's out there. Elena frowned. Could be a trap. Could be another survivor. Marcus's mind raced. Every encounter was a risk. Trust was a currency even more precious than ammunition. Jared, cover the rear. Mia and Elena, with me. Let's check it out, but no heroics. They crept through an alley, the sound growing louder, a child's voice calling out, pleading. The sight that met them was surreal, a small girl, no older than 8, huddled beneath a rusted fire escape. Her eyes were wide with fear, dirt-smudged but bright with life. Help, please, she whispered. Marcus knelt down, heart pounding. It's okay. We're here to help. The girl glanced over her shoulder nervously. They're coming. Before anyone could respond, a cold shadow moved behind them, a slow, deliberate shuffle that made their blood run cold. The quiet dead had found them. Marcus raised his rifle, the fight to survive once again igniting the fire inside him. The silent war of dead America was far from over. And as long as hope remained, so would the fight. The shuffling shadow behind them grew closer, slow but relentless, as the unmistakable sound of fingers scraping concrete echoed down the narrow alley. Marcus tightened his grip on the rifle, the cold metal a sharp contrast to the heat rushing through his veins. Time froze for a heartbeat, then instinct took over. Elena, left side. Mia, right, he barked, voice low but urgent. Elena slid into position beside him, rifle aimed down the alley where the shape was emerging from the darkness. Mia shifted slightly, eyes narrowing as she searched for any sign of movement beyond the faint glow from the streetlights above. The little girl whimpered, pressing herself tighter against the cold bricks, eyes flickering between the approaching figure and the group of survivors. The figure stepped into the light, pale, eyes dull and glassy, posture stiff but moving with surprising speed. The quiet dead were unpredictable, some moved with a terrifying agility, while others stumbled like broken dolls. This one was somewhere in between. Marcus didn't hesitate. The shot rang out, sharp, echoing, but the figure didn't fall immediately. It lurched forward, slower now but more determined. Reload. Marcus hissed, sliding the magazine free and snapping in another round. His breath was steady, trained from countless drills, but inside, a storm of emotions churned. Jared, at the alley entrance, scanned the street behind them, fingers tightening around his pistol. No sign of any others, he whispered. But we can't relax yet. The girl's gaze was locked on the advancing figure, terror clear in her wide eyes. They won't stop, she said, voice barely audible. Marcus glanced at her. Who are you? What's your name? She swallowed hard. Lila. All right, Lila. We're not going to let anything happen to you. But you have to stick with us. Suddenly, the quiet dead lunged, and Marcus fired again. This time the figure collapsed with a heavy thud, motionless. Elena moved quickly to confirm, her hand shaking slightly as she pressed the barrel of her rifle into its head. Safe for now, she muttered. Too close, Mia said, scanning the shadows. Marcus looked around. The street was eerily quiet again, the tension thick enough to choke on. We need to move. The longer we stay here, the more likely others will find us. Lila nodded, clutching Marcus's jacket tightly. Let's get to the safe house, Marcus said, leading the way. The safe house was an old warehouse on the edge of the city, a place fortified by survivors weeks before, offering shelter and supplies. As they moved, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, a cold presence just beyond the edge of vision. The quiet dead were never far, but tonight, the city felt different. He shared a glance with Elena, and without words, they knew. Something was changing. Inside the warehouse, the group was met with the dim glow of lanterns and the murmur of voices. Others, weary but alive, gathered around tables strewn with maps and radios. Marcus's second-in-command, a tall man named Reed, looked up sharply as they entered. Did you find her? Reed asked without preamble. Yes, Marcus said, nodding toward Lila. She was out there alone. Reed's eyes softened. Poor kid. We've been hearing reports of small groups of survivors being hunted down lately. The quiet dead seem more organized, almost like they're learning. Elena frowned. Learning how to hunt us better. That's impossible. Reed shook his head. We're not sure what it means, but it's something we can't ignore. The old rules don't apply anymore. Marcus paced toward a large map pinned on the wall, marked with red and green dots. Our patrols are stretched thin. If the quiet dead are adapting, we'll need a new plan, fast. Jared, standing near a radio, chimed in. I intercepted some chatter on the emergency frequencies. It wasn't human, but patterns, noises, something else. Could be a new kind of threat. Mia's expression hardened. Like what? More quiet dead? Or worse? Reed rubbed his chin. There's talk among some survivors about groups of the undead showing strange behaviors, more coordinated attacks, setting traps, even herding small groups. We don't have proof yet, but if it's true, it changes everything. The room fell silent, the weight of the news settling like dust in the stale air. Marcus's jaw clenched. He thought back to the last encounter, the strange hesitation of the quiet dead before fleeing instead of attacking. What if the undead weren't just mindless anymore? What if they were evolving? We can't let fear control us, Marcus said, breaking the silence. We fight smarter, harder. We protect every survivor we find, like Lila. Hope is our strongest weapon. Reed nodded. Agreed. But we need to expand patrols and secure more supplies. Food, medicine, weapons, everything is running low. Elena pulled out a small notebook. I have a list of potential supply routes. Some might be risky, but it's worth a try. Marcus looked around the room. Despite exhaustion and fear, the spark of determination was unmistakable in every eye. This silent war, Marcus said, it's about more than just survival. It's about proving we can endure. We fight not just to stay alive, but to live. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life, cutting through the tense atmosphere. The voice was faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. This is Echo Team. We have movement near the West Bridge, multiple targets, request backup. The room snapped to attention. Marcus grabbed the radio mic. Echo Team, this is command. Hold your position. Backup is on the way. Elena grabbed her rifle. Looks like we don't have long to wait. Mia tightened the straps on her backpack. We should get ready to move out. If the quiet dead are gathering, it could be a trap, or something worse. Jared swallowed hard but squared his shoulders. We're ready. Marcus felt a surge of pride. They were battered, outnumbered, and exhausted, but they were still standing. As the night deepened outside, the silent war raged on. The streets of dead America held secrets and dangers that could unravel even the strongest will. But Marcus and his group were prepared to face whatever came next. Because giving up was never an option. And in a world consumed by darkness, hope was the only light left to guide them. The warehouse buzzed with nervous energy as Marcus and his team prepared to move out. Outside, the night had grown colder, the wind whispering through broken windows and cracked walls. The faint hum of the city's dead heart pulsed in the distance, a constant reminder that danger was never far. Marcus checked his gear one last time. The rifle felt heavier than usual, but steady in his hands. Elena and Mia stood close by, faces hardened with resolve. Lila, clutching a worn blanket, huddled near Jared, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and trust. We stick together, Marcus said quietly, addressing the group. No one goes off alone. Stay alert, and watch each other's backs. Reed nodded. Echo Team's radio update said multiple targets near the West Bridge. It sounds like a major horde. Mia's voice was low but firm. If they're coordinating, that means the quiet dead might be trying to control territory. Or herding us into traps, Elena added, loading her rifle. We can't afford mistakes. Outside the warehouse, the world was a ruined maze of collapsed buildings and shattered streets. Marcus led the group carefully, the crunch of broken glass beneath their boots mixing with the distant groans and shuffles that haunted the night. As they moved toward the West Bridge, the tension tightened around them like a noose. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every flicker of movement could mean death. Lila clung tighter to Marcus's jacket. "Will we be safe?" she whispered. Marcus glanced down, forcing a reassuring smile. "We will be. That's why we're here, to protect each other." The ruined bridge appeared ahead, a skeletal structure half-collapsed, casting long shadows over the dark river below. Flickering lanterns from Echo Team's position shone like fragile beacons in the darkness. Suddenly, a sharp noise cracked through the air, a gunshot. Then another. "Gunfire," Elena whispered, voice tense. "They're under attack." Marcus motioned for the team to spread out and move cautiously. "Stay low, move fast. We can't let them get overwhelmed." Closer now, the group saw the chaos unfolding. Echo Team was pinned behind crumbling concrete barriers, faces grim as they fired into the advancing horde. The Quiet Dead swarmed, their movements eerily synchronized, bodies pressing forward like a living wall. Mia raised her rifle. "We have to break their line, or Echo Team won't last." "Cover me," Marcus ordered, sprinting toward the front lines. The air exploded with gunfire and screams, human and otherwise. Marcus ducked a snapping bite and fired twice, dropping 2 walkers that lunged at him. The stench of decay mixed with the sharp tang of gunpowder. Elena and Mia flanked him, their rifles cutting down the advancing horde with practiced precision. But the Quiet Dead kept coming, relentless and unforgiving. Suddenly, Marcus caught movement from the corner of his eye, something faster, smarter than the others. A figure broke from the horde, moving with a terrifying grace. Its eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, focused and calculating. "Watch out!" Marcus yelled, but the creature was already upon him. It lunged, claws extended. Marcus barely dodged, feeling the sharp scrape of nails against his jacket. He fired point blank, and the creature fell, but not before locking eyes with him, a flicker of something unholy sparking in its gaze. "New type," Elena breathed, reloading. "We've never seen anything like that." Reed shouted orders, rallying the survivors. "Hold the line. We can't let them break through." The battle pressed on, waves of the undead crashing against the defenders. Marcus's arms burned with exertion, heart pounding as he fought to keep the group alive. Lila screamed suddenly, drawing Marcus's attention. A small pack of walkers had circled behind them, slipping through a gap in the defenses. Jared reacted immediately, firing several shots to create a barrier. "Stay close. Don't let them surround us." Mia grabbed Lila, pulling her down behind cover. "We're almost clear," she said, eyes scanning for another threat. But then, the ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. A deep, guttural roar echoed across the river, louder, more menacing than anything they'd heard before. "Reinforcements?" Marcus asked, dread tightening in his chest. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "No, something else." The survivors froze, eyes darting around as shadows shifted and moved faster than humanly possible. From the darkness emerged a group of figures unlike any they had faced, towering, grotesque shapes that moved with terrifying speed and intelligence. Their eyes burned with an unnatural light, and their snarls carried a cruel intelligence. "They're evolving," Reed muttered. "The Quiet Dead are changing, becoming something worse." Marcus felt the weight of the moment. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a battle for the future of humanity itself. "We have to retreat," Marcus ordered. "Fall back to the warehouse. We regroup and plan." The survivors pulled back, fighting a desperate covering retreat as the new creatures pursued. Bullets tore through the night, but the creatures shrugged off wounds that would have stopped any other walker. Back at the warehouse, the team slammed the heavy doors shut, panting and battered but alive. Marcus stared at the faces around him, exhaustion, fear, but also determination. "We've seen what we're up against now," he said grimly. "This silent war is escalating." But we'll face it together. We have to. Lila looked up at Marcus, her small voice trembling. Will it ever end? Marcus crouched beside her. As long as we keep fighting, and keep hoping, no war lasts forever. Outside, the city groaned and shifted, the dead stirring and evolving in the dark. Inside, the survivors braced themselves for the long night ahead. Because in dead America, the war wasn't silent anymore, and the future was uncertain. The warehouse walls, scarred and worn, seemed to close in as Marcus and the survivors settled in, catching their breath. Outside, the restless city hummed with unseen threats, but inside, a fragile calm took hold. For now. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. The new creatures they'd encountered haunted his mind. Faster, smarter, stronger, the evolution of the quiet dead threatened everything they'd fought to protect. Reed paced in the corner, scanning the maps spread across a battered table. Our current safe zones won't hold if those things start hunting us like they did tonight. Elena leaned against a support beam, eyes closed for a brief moment. We need more intelligence, find out exactly what these new creatures are capable of. Otherwise, we're walking blind. Mia pulled Lila closer, whispering soothing words. The girl trembled, her wide eyes reflecting the flickering lantern light. We'll keep you safe, Mia promised softly. Marcus's gaze hardened. We will. But that means we have to change how we fight. A sharp knock echoed from the warehouse's metal door. Everyone tensed immediately, weapons raised. Marcus moved cautiously toward the entrance. Who's there? A voice, rough and tired, answered from the other side. It's Sam. I'm with the Northside survivors. We need shelter, the city's burning, and those things are moving fast. Marcus exchanged a quick look with Reed, then nodded. Open it. But everyone stay alert. The door creaked open, revealing a group of 5, dirty and weary, faces marked by exhaustion and fear. We don't have much, Sam said, stepping inside. But we know those creatures. They come from the old industrial district. Something about the chemicals there, it's changed them. Elena's eyes narrowed. Changed how? Sam shook his head. More aggressive. They hunt in packs, setting traps. We lost half our group trying to escape. Marcus felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. The battlefield was shifting beneath their feet, and the survivors were at the mercy of forces beyond their control. We can't keep running, Marcus said firmly. We need a plan to fight back. To push them out. Reed pointed to the map. The industrial district is risky. But it might be the key to turning this war around. If we can find the source of whatever caused the change, maybe we can stop it. Elena's lips pressed together. Or at least slow it down. The survivors gathered, sharing stories of narrow escapes and losses. Each tale added weight to the growing urgency. The city wasn't just falling apart, it was changing into something far worse. Marcus looked at Lila, sitting quietly with Mia. The girl's small hand gripped Mia's tightly, a fragile thread of hope in a broken world. We fight for her, Marcus said softly. For everyone who still believes there's a future worth living for. Plans began to take shape. Recon teams would be sent to the industrial district to gather information. Supplies would be gathered, weapons distributed, and defenses strengthened. But even as they prepared, a shadow lurked just beyond their walls, a reminder that in dead America, peace was always temporary. That night, Marcus stood watch on the rooftop, eyes scanning the ruined skyline. The stars were hidden behind thick clouds, and the city below was a maze of darkness and decay. Suddenly, movement caught his eye, a figure slipping through the shadows far below. He tensed, raising his rifle just as the figure turned, revealing a face he hadn't seen in months. Rachel? Marcus whispered. She met his gaze, a faint smile flickering before disappearing into the night. Marcus's heart pounded. The silent war was far from over, and its secrets were only just beginning to unravel. Rachel disappeared into the shadows before Marcus could call out again, leaving him gripping his rifle tighter than before. The sight of her face, the last person he ever expected to see, had shaken something deep inside him. Memories flooded back, old promises, broken trust, and a hope that once felt real. Marcus didn't have time to dwell. The city was on the brink of collapse, and the new breed of quiet dead was spreading fast. He turned back toward the warehouse, each step heavier than the last. Inside, the team was already mobilizing. Supplies had been packed, weapons checked, and the tension was palpable. Reed gathered the group around the table again, his voice steady but grim. "We can't wait," he said. "The industrial district is becoming a death trap. The creatures are adapting, setting traps, coordinating attacks. Our reconnaissance teams reported entire streets swallowed by darkness." Elena nodded. "We have to find the source, whatever's in those factories, before this spreads any further." Mia looked toward Lila, who clung to her side. "And we have to make sure everyone survives the journey." Marcus stepped forward. "This isn't just about fighting anymore. It's about finding answers, and hope. I want a team to scout ahead, map the area, and identify the core of the infection." "Count me in," Elena said immediately, eyes blazing. "I'm with you," Reed added, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. Mia hesitated before speaking. "If we're sending a scout team, we need backup to defend the warehouse and hold our ground." "That's the plan," Marcus said. "We'll stay here with the others. This place is our lifeline." Hours later, under the cloak of pre-dawn darkness, the scout team slipped quietly through the broken streets. Every step was cautious, every breath measured. The city's silence was heavy, broken only by distant groans and the crunch of debris underfoot. The industrial district loomed ahead, its towering smokestacks and rusted machinery casting monstrous silhouettes against the sky. Elena led the way, eyes scanning for movement. The team advanced with practiced stealth, aware that one wrong move could mean death. Suddenly, a faint glow flickered ahead. Marcus's radio crackled to life. "Echo team, report." Elena whispered into the mic, "We've found something. A factory emitting a strange green light. It's coming from inside." Reed's voice was sharp. "Be careful. That might be the source." They approached the factory's entrance, a gaping maw of broken metal doors and shattered glass. Inside, the air was thick with chemical fumes and a low, pulsing hum that seemed to vibrate through the floor. Elena's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing rows of tanks filled with murky liquid, each one housing a grotesque, half-formed creature suspended in greenish sludge. "Experimentation," she breathed. "They were trying to create something unnatural." Reed frowned. "This explains the evolution. The infection mutated because of these chemicals. They turned the quiet dead into something far more dangerous." Suddenly, the floor trembled beneath them. Alarms blared, shattered glass tinkled, and a deep roar echoed through the factory. "We've been made," Elena whispered fiercely. "They know we're here." The team sprinted deeper into the factory, dodging falling debris and avoiding traps set to catch intruders. The new creatures poured into the halls, fast, brutal, and relentless. One of them caught Reed off guard, slashing his arm with razor-sharp claws. He grunted, fighting back fiercely, but the creature was already moving toward Elena. Marcus's radio burst with urgency. "Echo team, fall back. Fall back now." Elena shouted back, too late. "We're trapped." Outside, the warehouse defenders heard the cries over the radio, their hearts pounding. They readied themselves for a fight, knowing that their friends were fighting for their lives inside the heart of the nightmare. Back in the factory, the scout team fought with everything they had. Marcus's voice was steady through the radio. "Hold your ground. We're coming." But the creatures pressed harder. The factory's walls trembled as explosions rocked the building. Just as the team was about to be overwhelmed, Marcus and a small reinforcement unit burst through the entrance, weapons blazing. The creatures snarled and lunged, but Marcus's team held the line. Explosions shattered the eerie green glow as they destroyed tanks and machinery, cutting off the source of the mutation. With one last desperate push, the creatures were driven back, retreating into the shadows. Elena collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily. "It's over, for now." Reed clutched his wounded arm but managed a grim smile. "We've hit their heart." Marcus looked around at his team, battered but alive. The warehouse, the city, the entire country was still a war zone, but they had found a glimmer of hope. The silent war of dead America was far from over. But now, the fight had a purpose beyond survival. It was a fight for a future. The factory's destruction echoed through the city like a thunderclap, but the silence that followed was even more unsettling. Marcus and his team returned to the warehouse, weary but alive. The fight had been brutal, more brutal than anything they'd faced before, but they had won a small, vital victory. Inside the warehouse, the survivors gathered to hear the report. Marcus's voice was steady but grave. The factory was a lab, a place where someone was experimenting with the infection. The chemicals altered the virus, creating the new breed of creatures. They're faster, stronger, and more coordinated. Elena stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "We destroyed the main source, but there could be more out there. Labs, hidden sites where this mutation started. We can't be sure." Reed nodded. "We have to be ready for anything. This war isn't just about fighting zombies anymore. It's about stopping the infection spread, stopping the new evolution." Mia hugged Lila tightly, her voice barely a whisper. "What about us? What happens if they come here next?" Marcus looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every survivor. "We prepare. We build defenses, gather supplies, and stay alert. No one here will be left behind." The group dispersed, each person carrying a heavy burden but also a spark of hope. For the first time in a long while, they had a direction, a mission beyond just surviving. That night, as Marcus sat by the dim light of a candle, he found his thoughts drifting back to Rachel. Her sudden appearance, and just as quickly, her disappearance, it was a mystery he couldn't shake. He turned to Reed, who was sharpening his blade nearby. "Did you see her?" Reed looked up, eyebrows furrowed. "Yeah. That was no coincidence. She's alive, but why now? And why here?" Marcus clenched his fists. "We'll find out." The following days passed in a tense routine of patrols, fortifying their position, and scouring the city for supplies. The industrial district's destruction sent ripples through the undead population, forcing the new creatures to retreat temporarily, but the threat remained ever-present. One morning, Marcus received a message on a makeshift radio, a voice he recognized instantly. It was Rachel. "Marcus," she said, her tone urgent. "I found something. A group of survivors like us, but they're hiding something dangerous. You need to come, now." Marcus's heart pounded. He gathered a small team, including Elena and Reed, preparing to follow Rachel's lead. The warehouse was left under the watchful eyes of Mia and the others. They navigated the ruined streets, moving cautiously toward Rachel's location, an abandoned school on the city's edge. The building was eerily quiet, the once bustling halls now empty and cold. Rachel greeted them, her expression strained. "We've been hiding here for weeks," she explained. "But there's a secret. A faction of survivors who believe the infection can be controlled, even weaponized." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Weaponized? What do you mean?" Rachel hesitated, then led them deeper into the school's basement, where flickering lights revealed a hidden laboratory. Machines hummed softly, and rows of cages held infected creatures, not fully undead, but not alive either. "The faction calls themselves the Keepers," Rachel said grimly. "They believe they can harness the infection's power to rebuild America on their terms. But they're experimenting with the virus, trying to create controllable soldiers." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's madness. They're playing with fire." Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. A group of armed survivors appeared, faces cold and determined. One stepped forward, a woman with sharp eyes and a commanding presence. "You're trespassing. This is our territory." Marcus raised his hands slowly. we're here to talk. To find a way to stop this, before it destroys everything. The woman's gaze was unyielding. You don't understand. Control means survival. Without us, this city dies. Tensions rose as the two groups faced off, the fragile hope of unity slipping through their fingers. Marcus glanced at his team. We have to find a way to stop their experiments, but maybe, just maybe, there's a way to work together. The woman's lips curled into a cold smile. We'll see about that. As the sun set over the ruined city, a new battle loomed, not just against the undead, but between survivors themselves. The silent war of dead America had entered its most dangerous phase yet. The air in the basement lab was thick with tension. Marcus stood face to face with the leader of the Keepers, a woman named Seraphine. Her sharp gaze betrayed a ruthless conviction, a belief that survival meant embracing the infection, not fighting it. We don't have to be enemies, Marcus said carefully. The infection is tearing the city apart. If you keep experimenting, you risk destroying everyone. Seraphine's smile was cold, almost amused. You don't understand. This virus is evolution. We control it, we control the future. Fight it, and you die with the old world. Elena glanced at Marcus, her eyes pleading for caution. Reed's hand rested on his rifle, ready for a fight if needed. The stakes were clear, the Keeper's vision of survival was dangerous, and their experiments created monsters that could surpass even the quiet dead. Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. We're not here to destroy you. We want to stop the infection from spreading. Help us find a way. Seraphine's eyes flicked to Rachel, recognition sparking briefly. You were with Marcus. A traitor to the Keepers. Rachel met her gaze evenly. I'm a survivor. I choose life. Before Marcus could respond, the alarm inside the lab blared. A warning light flashed red. They're coming, a technician shouted. The quiet dead, or something worse, were closing in. The fragile truce shattered instantly. Seraphine barked orders to her followers. Defend the lab. Don't let them take the research. Marcus grabbed Elena's arm. We have to help. If those creatures get the virus, it's over. The basement erupted into chaos. The two survivor groups fought side by side against the new breed of undead, faster, smarter, and more deadly than anything before. Marcus ducked as a creature lunged at him, barely dodging its razor-sharp claws. Elena fired her rifle, taking down two attackers with precise shots. Reed fought fiercely, his blade flashing in the dim light, cutting through the advancing monsters. Rachel covered the rear, shouting directions, and pulling the wounded to safety. Despite the fierce resistance, the creatures pressed harder. The lab's defenses began to fail under the relentless assault. Seraphine yelled, We have to evacuate. Take the research and fall back. Marcus nodded. We're with you. Let's get out of here. The survivors retreated through a maze of tunnels beneath the city, the creatures close behind. The narrow passages amplified every sound, growls, footsteps, and the pounding of hearts. Suddenly, a section of the tunnel collapsed, trapping part of the group inside. Elena! Marcus shouted, but the darkness swallowed her as she struggled to free herself. Reed looked at Marcus, determination etched on his face. We can't leave her. Marcus nodded. We'll find another way. Move forward. With heavy hearts, the group pressed on, emerging into the cold night air on the outskirts of the city. They were battered, exhausted, and smaller in number, but alive. The research was saved, but at a cost. Mia and the others had waited anxiously at the warehouse, their faces lighting up as the survivors returned. Rachel collapsed into Marcus's arms. It's worse than we thought. The Keeper's experiments are spreading, and new creatures are multiplying. Marcus looked up at the stars, his mind racing. The infection was evolving faster than they could keep up with. The war was no longer just silent, it was escalating. That night, Marcus sat by the fire, replaying every moment. He knew the fight ahead would test every ounce of courage and hope they had left. the future of Dead America hung in the balance. Let me know when you're ready for Part 8. Part 8. Dawn crept over the shattered skyline of Dead America, casting pale light over the ruins where humanity clung to its last fragile hope. Marcus stood at the warehouse's entrance, looking out over the city. The battles had left scars, on the streets, on the survivors, and on his soul. The war with the undead was far from over. The new creatures were relentless, their numbers growing, and the Keeper's experiments meant the infection could no longer be underestimated. But something had shifted. With the combined survivors, those who fought to protect what remained of humanity, and even some from the Keepers who saw the cost of their ambition, a new alliance was forming. Elena joined Marcus, her expression weary but resolute. We can't fight this war alone. We need more survivors. More voices willing to stand. Marcus nodded. We'll send out signals, establish safe zones. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about reclaiming our world. Rachel approached, holding a small device, a transmitter salvaged from the Keeper's lab. This can reach across the city, maybe farther. If we can get messages out, maybe other groups can join us. Reed loaded his rifle, a slight smile breaking through his fatigue. Then let's make sure the future is ours to fight for. As the survivors gathered, they made plans, scouting missions, supply runs, communication networks. The silent war had become a fight not just for survival, but for hope. But Marcus knew better than to believe it would be easy. The infection was evolving. The new creatures were smart, adaptable, and terrifying. And in the shadows, forces they had yet to discover were still moving. The city might be dead, but the war was alive, and it was only just beginning. As Marcus looked up at the rising sun, he whispered, "We will fight. We will endure. We will survive." Because even in the darkest silence, hope could roar. This concludes the story outline in 8 engaging parts, each carefully crafted to keep suspense and interest high, and safe for YouTube monetization. If you want, I can help with any other titles or create detailed scripts for each part too.